Joseph, in 2018, man, fill me in.
Yes, so in 2018, I was just learning real estate, and I wasn't really going so far though in 2018 under the mentorship that I had at that time. It seemed like every time I show up to the office, the going thing would be we're about to hit the ground running, and then at a certain point you start thinking, man, am I running on a treadmill or am I running in real life?
Man, I hear that. But now, fast forward to what, 2024, you've acquired 500 plus units, multifamily real estate, but you
Yep,
don't actually have to be there in person. And you don't even have to like really run the operation, but you collect the cash flow and you have equity and ownership in all these assets. Is that correct?
exactly. That's
That's
correct.
amazing. Okay, fill me in just kind of like what exactly your company, your investment firm does real quick.
Yes, so Apex Real Estate Investments is a privately held equity investment company that raises money. It's a fund. We raise money and we utilize that money in order to acquire these buildings in landlord friendly states. So, just to name a few, I would say Texas, uh, South Carolina, North Carolina, Alabama, Florida, just to name a few places that we look to acquire properties in.
That's amazing, man. And that's just the intro, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Growth House Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Ray. I'm here with my man, Joseph. Joseph, I had to do some research, man, and I'm like, I have a whole list. You're a former Marine, a TEDx
Yep.
speaker. You write for Forbes. You got another article coming out tomorrow, which we'll talk about. Owner of Apex Investments, like you just said, which is a private equity investment firm. Anything else I miss?
Yeah, so actually the Forbes article doesn't come out tomorrow. It's going to come out in a few weeks.
Okay,
That's the
got it.
new one. But one
Got
came
it.
out yesterday.
Yeah, you're always doing some big stuff, man. I'm excited. Let's dive into your story. I want to know a little bit more about your background. I want to learn, the journey of being a Marine. You have a great TEDx talk about fear, which just actually a kind of a random question. Did you have some fear doing the TEDx talk? I mean, public speaking, most people would rather die than do public speaking.
Actually, yes, actually I
Yeah,
did, which is why I even did it over fear.
love
Because
it.
when I first heard that I was going to be doing a TEDx, I was like, man, I was like, but I haven't spoken on stage in a long time. And I still remember back when I was in network marketing back in 2016,
Yeah,
when I tried to do like a course or something like that, like a class basically to all these here people in my downline and stuff. And I'm up there sweating, just sweating like I'm standing in a sauna, like and couldn't talk, mouth was all dry and ashy. So like, yeah, I had fear. Trust me, it was definitely it reminded me of that.
but you did it, man, and it was great. I just literally finished watching it because I'm like, I gotta see this, and actually tell people,
Thanks.
give them a little sneak peek into that because it was a great, I guess more of a metaphor, analogy, and a lesson in life.
Yes, so going into that, what sparked me to do that, do the power of fear, was the fact that when I was in the Marine Corps, I was going to boot camp. I didn't know how to swim.
Mhm.
So I literally had to figure it out by diving off the 10-foot diving board into 16 feet water. And then you figure out how to swim to the other side so you can pass that and become a Marine. That's
That's
just one of
incredible.
many fears. That's one of many fears that we have to conquer in order
Hmm.
to become a Marine.
That's crazy. So, former Marine, how'd you go from Marine to now getting into real estate?
So when I got out the Marine Corps, what I ended up doing was going into personal training. And so, personal trainers, a lot of times, yeah, you look fit, but you don't make that much money. You
Very
have the
true.
body, but you don't have the money to match.
Mm.
So, so I was a personal trainer for a couple years, but I was learning how to get more into the finance industry. So I
Mm.
started going more towards what you would call uh, life insurance policies and
Hmm.
stuff, and figuring out real estate. Went to a Robert Kiyosaki meeting,
Yeah,
learn business taxes. So just different things, trying to figure out what I really wanted to do, and I landed on real estate.
got it. And then, from my understanding, you were what do you call it? A professional deal finder or
Yes,
a
professional
wholesaler?
deal finder,
I like
wholesaler.
that. I like
Yep.
that.
I call it professional deal finder because a lot of people say, "Oh, I hate wholesalers." I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, professional deal finder.
Did you
That
tweak that
sounds better.
yourself? Did you come up with that?
Yes, I literally
Excuse
came
me.
up with that myself.
I
Let me
love that.
just think of another way to do this. Oh, professional deal finder. I
I
don't know.
love
I
it.
haven't
Is
heard
that?
anybody else say it.
Oh, well, I'm gonna start saying it now. For I'm not a wholesaler, but a lot of my friends are. So I'm like, hey, tweak it a little bit. I like that. I'm gonna steal that from you. But okay. So did you start out wholesaling, and what even got you into wholesaling?
Yes, I started off wholesaling, but before that, well, actually, I just lied. I started off learning real estate from this guy, and I was learning more about wraps, sub to seller finance. So I really
Mm-hmm.
learned how to go find the deals to purchase, but I didn't know
Got
how
it.
to sell the deals, right? I came
Mm-hmm.
across wholesaling while learning from him. He wanted
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with wholesaling. So what I did was I went and worked for a company
Mm-hmm.
that taught me pretty much how to wholesale. So after working for that company for a few months, I set my own company up and started doing it myself. So I
I
can,
love this.
and I got 100% of the profits at that point. And
Yeah,
so from that, what I did was just kept wholesaling. My first check ever was $10,000.
it's amazing.
And then I made 15,000 the next time. And then I just kept doing that over and over again, figuring out, hey, how do I just keep doing it? I created a system. I
Mm-hmm.
figured out multiple ways of getting deals beyond just the typical let me cold call somebody and get a deal. So I figured out other ways to get deals as well. And so I did that for a few years, and I really thought about it. I was like, but I don't own anything. I said, I sold how
Mm-hmm.
many properties? And I own none.
Okay, let's pause there because I want to dive into that. But you just like basically walked into wholesaling and was like, "Oh, I got this figured out." My friend, he just had his first deal. I think he made $500 on the wholesale because he got his numbers all wrong.
Oh wow,
so obviously
man.
people started. You're like, yeah, I feel for him.
That
so
happened to
there,
me one time. I have a story about that, but
there you go. We have to share the story because I feel like people actually learn more from failures than really success. But before we
yeah.
dive into that story, what were some of the most like beneficial or contributing factors to that early success? And also, I want to know because a lot of our community as Growth House, they're all about leaving that corporate job, and a lot of them are trying to wholesale on the side to try to maybe replace a six-figure salary with wholesaling, or maybe in the future what you're kind of doing with the private equity, which we'll go into that. So I guess my main question right now is, what were like kind of the reasons why you think you were so successful so quickly in wholesaling?
For me, what caused me to be successful is just I had a Marine Corps mindset, and
Mm,
I used that same approach with every business, right? And that is coming in with the full intent of being 100% prepared and wanting to just conquer. Like I want to be the person that's the best at it.
mm,
And so I'm willing to do more learning, more education, figuring out who I need to meet. Uh, it's the same thing. Like this is like even going back, like Kobe Bryant. What did he do
mm,
with Michael Jordan? He figured out who's the best. How do I learn from the best? Do what the best do. I get the same results as them. That's the same approach that I take in really any business. Is I just start researching, and so that's how I got really good at wholesaling. I used to watch Brent Daniels, all of them,
yeah.
all
That's
these people.
amazing. So
Uh,
did you pay for mentorship? Because I'm someone that's a big like I preach, yo, if you want to like expedite your growth, go learn, like you just said, from someone who's already doing it. And what's the quicker way? You usually pay for it through coaching or mentorship or masterminds. Is that something you did, or were you like, hey, I'm YouTube University all the way?
so I started YouTube University all the
Yeah.
way, right? But year two, I bought a course.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, year two. It was either year two or year three. I bought a course, and it was Jamil Damji's course,
Yeah.
Astro Flipping.
Yep.
And
They're my
so,
they're Arizona guys, so I know these guys. They're
yeah,
great.
Arizona guys. Me and him, I did a podcast with Jamil Damji back in 21, and this was right before going to East Africa. I found out he was Tanzanian.
Oh, no way.
So, yeah, it's funny. It's funny. He was telling me all about it. It's great, and it's a beautiful place, by the way, also.
Yeah, I want to dive
But
into that because you travel a lot too.
so yes, yeah, I did pay for a course,
Mm-hmm.
the Astro Flipping course.
So you start making $10,000, $15,000 checks in wholesaling. How long did it take you to make your first, let's say, six figures, 100K through wholesaling?
I say like year, really, it was towards the end of year two, beginning of year three.
Mm-hmm.
So year three, I made more than year two and year one combined.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because I implemented the astro flipping along with the way that I learned, which is cold calling, cold text. So I did cold calling, cold text, then talked to other wholesalers, built my buyers list up, sold their deals for them. So it all added up. It was year three was a great year.
It sounds like it. But at the same time, you're making money, you're realizing I don't have equity or ownership in any of these houses. So then
Exactly.
that's when you continue that story from there because it's amazing.
Yes. So after doing that in year three, I'm looking up, I'm like, okay, I have cash, but I have no property.
Yeah.
And other people, I'm looking at them, they have cash flow, they get to live very comfortably. They're not concerned about next month's money. So I'm like, hold on, they're doing something right. I'm doing something wrong. Even though on paper it looks like, oh, well, he's killing it, I'm
Mm-hmm.
still doing something wrong. And so what I did was, uh, I just started studying. I read books, and one of my favorite books was is by J. Paul Getty.
Hmm.
And then another one's by Navarro Ravikant, and they both speak about ownership and equity. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
why I started learning multifamily because I wanted nothing to do with owning single family houses,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, because I realized I watched too many friends of mine, and which one guy was making $7 a month off of his single family rental property, and I said that would not be me. You can't
Yeah,
even
right.
afford a Netflix subscription nowadays with that with that kind of return.
That's facts.
so so I wasn't having it. So that's why I started learning multifamily.
Okay, so you jump straight into multifamily because of the friends
Yep.
around you were like, yeah, this is not cash flowing enough.
Yeah,
Makes
it wasn't
sense.
cash flowing enough for them. Like they
Mm-hmm.
was trying to get me in on it so that I can
Mm-hmm.
be like them with the single family. But I watch your actions versus what you say,
Yeah.
you know.
So what happens next? You're like, all right, I'm all in a multifamily.
Yes, I'm all in the multifamily. I bought a course.
Yeah. Yeah.
It goes back to that. I
It's a
bought a
pattern,
course.
guys. If you're listening, anyone who's successful, if you look back, they had a mentor, they bought a course, they're investing in themselves. So I love that.
Yes, so end up buying a course with Michael Blank.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, I would recommend that course.
I
It
just
goes
listened to his
into
podcast.
detail.
He's great.
Yeah, it does. It's man, like that thing, he's very technical. I like that about
Mm-hmm.
him. That's how I am. Not too many people know that about me. I'm very technical. I like to learn a specific way. And
Mm-hmm.
so going through his course, I learned everything about syndication. But then I went to this uh this conference. You know how they have like fire summits and things, wealth conferences. I
Yeah.
went to this conference and one of these guys walked up to me and because he saw my arms, they was out. He's like, "Man, you got some big arms. Like you play football or something like that." I was like,
Yeah.
"No, I was in the Marine Corps." So that was a conversation starter. Come to find out, this guy is a fund manager, equity partner with the group. He provides equity to the group that I was at their conference. And then after the
Ah.
conference, he ended up having me come out to his house and show me pretty much everything that he was doing, all the paperwork, all the details, the stuff is set up. And we went from there. I set up my first fund. This was back in 2022.
You said that so nonchalant. Like I think when I think of setting up a fund, I'm like, man, maybe 5 years down the road. But you're just like, oh, this guy just had lunch with them, went over some paperwork. I'm like, yeah, I'll set up a fund. And you just set up a fund. Like, walk me through that like process.
Yeah,
Were you
set
like
it up and it's
worried? Were
100%
you?
owned.
That's crazy. Did you ever take investment dollars before, or was this the first time ever raising capital?
So I had never really took investment dollars before at this level, right? The
Mm-hmm.
minimum investment is $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, also people invest their retirement accounts with me. So it's a
Mm.
lot of stuff that goes into this here, you know?
Yeah.
Now, before when I was like 23, I kind of played around with the idea of, oh, let me set up a fund. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, let me raise money and see if people want to invest in Forex or crypto stuff or
Yeah.
whatever. I just kind of playing around with the idea. And, some people, they wanted to give like $500, 250, something like that. But
Mm-hmm.
that just that didn't work out so well. It wasn't the right fit.
Mm-hmm.
So, but this right here made sense because, okay, I'm investing in something that is concrete. People can go touch these buildings. It's real assets. If I'm telling you I put money into this here building, I can you can fly out there and look at it, walk through the
Mm-hmm.
office, walk through the units, see what the neighborhood is like. It's much better.
Mm. Well, walk me through
So,
those first couple like months. You set it up, and then do you immediately like have a target? Like, hey, actually, I'm curious. Do you find a deal first, or do you raise
nope,
capital?
you
Yeah,
raise money. That
raise money
that's the
first.
hardest part, right? The hardest
You're like,
part
I
is
don't have a deal,
raising
but I
money
need I
with
need
no
money.
deal. Exactly. You're like, I
Okay,
need
walk me
money,
through
but I
that.
don't have a deal yet.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you have to this is something I learned through Michael Blank's course though, was I learned that you can put together an ideal deal of what you're looking for, a sample deal.
Hmm.
I didn't necessarily have to do that. I was blessed to also become the equity partner to that group that was at their conference. These people have 20 plus years of experience. So they immediately had a deal for me to start raising for. So it was a lot simpler for me.
Got it. Okay, so they had a deal for you. Oh, so that you were just plug and play. You're like, here's the deal, and so
Yeah,
here's
plug
how
and
much
play.
money
Like set
I
the
need to
fund up.
raise.
They already had a deal. Okay, how much I need to raise? Let me start raising money. And I pretty much became an equity partner in my first deal, my first apartment deal within the first 6 to 8 months of owning the fund. And
That's
that's not
amazing.
normal. Sometimes it takes people
No.
2 years to get their first deal, 3 years.
Yeah. So, who were your first couple of investors? How'd you find them? And then, how much money did you have to raise for that first round? I guess of the fund.
Yeah, so the first round, I really just needed to bring like $500,000 to the deal,
Mm-hmm.
to be an equity partner on there. So that group though, the first investors, going back, the first investors was one somebody who was on my email list from back when I was wholesaling.
Mm. You had the
She was
network,
one
you
of
had
my
the
first.
connections.
Yep. So she was one of my first investors.
Mm-hmm.
And then also a guy who I had just happened to met on a Zoom call somewhere. We're just talking, just having a conversation. We met, introduced ourselves, networking, But then
Mm-hmm.
a few weeks later, he ends up investing with me when he found out what I did.
Mm.
And he's in real estate also, but he owns like a whole mortgage company.
Yeah.
So just I ran into people like that.
And the minimum was $100,000.
Yes, and the minimum was $100,000. So imagine, think people are giving me $100,000 to invest.
Yeah.
I'm what 28 at that time.
Yeah. I'm still trying to figure it out. Keep going.
Yeah, I'm not, so I'm 30 now.
Yeah.
So 28 at that time, and also just out there just looking for deals.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know I didn't know the same stuff that I know now, but they believed in me enough to invest with me.
That's amazing. What do you think about you or about what you said? You were able to, get that trust so quickly.
So recently speaking with an investor, something they told me is that they can tell that I truly care about my investors. This
Mm.
isn't just something where I'm like doing it and I'm like, oh, I'm only doing this here so I can get all this here fancy stuff and all that. Like, yeah, I like to travel, right? But when in the US, I'm not trying to be flashy in the US. You can get robbed out here. Like,
True.
I go to a whole nother country and hang out there.
Yeah. So what was your first deal? Can you kind of run through some of the numbers and what that looked like? What was your like return to the investors that I guess you promised, or are you even allowed to promise, or is it just like
You're
how
not
do you
allowed to
even word that?
promise.
So how do you word
You're
that?
not allowed to. So first deal, I'll just give you a structure of how it's set up.
Yeah.
So the first deal, 160 units, Charleston, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
It's projected to do around 27 to 29% annual over six
Mm-hmm.
years. But also, it has a downside performance protection hurdle of 10%, meaning at the time of sale, if something goes wrong with that property and it doesn't perform the way anticipated, then
Yeah.
what will happen is the operators over it has to pay the investors a minimum of 10% annual return on investment before they take a profit.
Mm.
So at the
Got it.
very least, my investors will make 10% on that property.
Is that verbiage pretty like common, or is that not too
That's
common
not
to add?
common. That verbiage is
Okay.
just for that particular deal and that particular group.
Got it.
They handle things that way.
Got
I
it.
work with other groups, they do preferred returns. So all
Mm-hmm.
the deal structure really, the deal structure is different depending on who I work with. Like I have
Mm-hmm.
one right now that has a fixed interest rate of 2.95% interest only until 2030.
Mm-hmm.
And that loan doesn't mature until 2035. That is something like investors, if they want to be a part of that, this is the time. You want to be a part of that one.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we sell that in 4 years, and it's gone at that point.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So I recently was listening to a podcast and they're talking about syndication. And the guy said basically, if you're not at least an LP in the deal as a general partner, if you're not at least also investing yourself as an LP in the deal, then he would never look at that deal. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that I would say sometimes people get caught up in the wrong things.
Hmm.
I believe in being an LP in your
Mm-hmm.
deals, yes, but also not to the point where oh, well, because you're not an LP in this deal, I'm not going to invest because you don't know their financial stuff, right? Like they
Mm-hmm.
could have most of their money in another deal that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So as a syndicator, this is what I know about syndicators. As syndicators, it's very few syndicators that can just throw around millions of dollars. Let's think about it. If someone's just getting started, all he said in that breath when he said that was,
Mm-hmm.
"If you're new, I want to invest with you."
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes, like
That makes sense.
if you didn't come in here with 500,000 already, I don't want to work with you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you have to be careful, right? Like because
Mm-hmm.
I've seen where you can work with someone who's more experienced and they just
Mm-hmm.
bum a deal. You can work with someone who's not that experienced and they do really well.
Right.
So,
So you
and
did
it's
your
because they're more hungry.
100%, 100%. And they want to prove. They want to prove to like people that hey, you're gonna work with me on the next deal because I performed for you. So
Exactly.
you did your first deal in about you said 6 to 8 months,
Yes.
and then
Provided
after
equity to
that,
my first property in the first 6 to 8 months.
and then what happens after that?
So after that, you pretty much you wait for cash flow for that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, fast forward though, September, September of last year, 2023,
Mm-hmm.
got my second one. Because 2022 was kind of slow with getting deals and stuff. People would stop
Mm-hmm.
looking. So it just so happened that I found an operator that is more open minded. So they use the
Mm-hmm.
sub two method to acquire this here property.
Interesting. So I
Yeah.
mostly look at single family homes, which obviously you're changing my mind as we talk. But as far as sub two, is that common that multifamily and I guess syndications also leverage, creative finance?
Honestly, it was my first time hearing about that.
Yeah.
And when I saw it, I was like, I got to write a Forbes article about this. and
Yeah.
so, and so that was the first one I wrote. how
Okay.
to
There you
how
go.
to
Plug for the Forbes
navigate.
article.
Yep, I was like how to navigate. I forget why I named it. Pretty much just how to navigate in a high interest rate market to still
Mm,
acquire properties. Now,
yeah.
if operators took advantage of that knowledge, I don't know, but I know the ones that I work with took advantage of that.
Hmm. I guess
You
the
know,
question I have, how do you figure out what, syndications to work with? Because I think we talked off camera, but essentially you get to pick what syndications that you want to work with. You pick like you said in one of the podcasts, the Michael Jordan, the Kobe Bryant, the LeBron James, the syndicators. And you're like, all right, I'm creating my dream team. I'm going to let my
yep,
investors invest with them.
exactly. So yes, how I pick that, I look at certain markers. One, are they actually hungry? Do they want to be successful in this year? I'm looking at their success track record already. I'm looking at how they handle things. How do they speak about things, right? I've come across some people, the way they speak, I'm probably not going to invest with them.
Hmm.
But then there's others who they specialize in certain things. So I look for certain stuff. Do you specialize in the area? If you know that one area like the back of your hand, then you're not, it's less likely you'll make a mistake getting a property there. So there's
Hmm.
a group I work with. They specialize specifically in Dallas, Fort
Hmm.
Worth area. I have not done anything with them just yet, but I am this year. Within the
Mm-hmm.
first quarter or second quarter of this year, I'll be doing something with them. Now, with this other group, they specialize in 200 to 400 unit properties. I'm like, okay, that gets my numbers up. That gets the number of doors up a lot quicker
Mm-hmm.
working with that group. And they have a strong track record. They've raised money in a fund before themselves. They've raised a
Mm-hmm.
$100 million fund.
Oh wow.
So just from a oh, and the backstory of the operator, like just the backstory, she came from nothing, poor,
Mm.
and she built this here thing. So those are the other things that I look at as well.
That makes sense. Because I've thought in like earlier this year, like, well, I guess it's already 2024. So earlier last year, I was like, I think I want to do a fund for co-living homes since that's kind of my expertise, and you get the cash flow way more than just a regular single family. And so they said,
Yep,
Jesse, if you want to do that, it's why you. You got to really answer that question. Why you? It
exactly.
sounds
You
like
have to be
that's
able to sell
also what you look
yourself,
for. Mm-hmm.
right? And so that's why, the TEDx talk. Think about how
Yeah.
many people want to invest with someone, and they can tell somebody, yeah, the person who I invest my money with did a TEDx,
Mm-hmm. Writes for
or the person,
Forbes.
yeah, he writes articles that gets published with Forbes. He's a part of the
Mm-hmm.
Forbes Business Council, and then they look up. People are like, oh, what's the Forbes Business Council? They look up, oh, very vetted business people.
Mm-hmm.
It just builds trust. Oh, you need a
100%.
million dollars in revenue to even be a part of this here group. Oh,
Mm.
oh, he's successful. Or you need five
Mm.
hundred thousand in funding minimum. So those things all help out. Why you? So it just further
Mm.
builds it up.
So we're all about, like, for our community, all about being intentional. And one of my friends came up with a quote where um, nothing happens randomly when you live intentionally. And I love that. And it sounds like you were very intentional about what kind of publications you want to be a part of, what kind of groups you want to be associated with. And so for anyone else out there who's looking to kind of do something similar, let's just, real quick one off. How'd you get involved with TEDx? And then how'd you get involved with Forbes and become, a council member?
Yes, so TEDx.
Mm-hmm.
That, if I'm being completely honest, was sheer luck. It was
Yeah.
a blessing from above. Because a friend of mine, she reached out to me from Facebook. She's like, "How would you like to be a part of a TEDx?" Now you know
Mm-hmm.
already. You like sketch like Facebook TEDx. Man, I don't speak in public. What's special about me?
Yeah.
So, but I said, yeah. I said, put me on the phone with the people. I get
Yeah.
on the Zoom call. The organizer, I still have not seen her face at that point. Right? I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
this got to be scam. They're talking to me, and they're like, "Oh, you'll be great for this here. You'll be great. It's gonna be X amount of money so you can learn how to like speak though. You have to pay like a course basically on how to speak publicly on TEDx brand. Okay.
Mm.
The minute they ask for money, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
some gotta
You're like,
be
all
this
right.
gotta be a scam. So
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, I said, let me just test it out. Let me see this here. I get on the calls, I start learning. I'm like, hold on, this is real. I said, I got a month to get ready. I'm about to be speaking. I said, I'm scared to death. So anyway, I started prepping though, and I'm like, all right. So I prep, I get everything, and yeah, August 19th is when it actually happened that I spoke on stage.
That's amazing. And then what about Forbes?
And then Forbes, shortly after that, um, I saw Forbes Business Council, and I was like, I wonder if I qualify to be a part of this here, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
I applied to it. I showed them like revenue, all this stuff, and
And what year was this? Were you doing revenue wholesaling or revenue from your fund?
for my fund.
Okay.
So this is last year. I got pretty much invited to be a part of the Force Business Council.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, I get invited, I join it, and I'm starting to write articles with them. But when I got accepted, I was like, oh, awesome. And when they accepted me, when they responded, they said it was a no-brainer to bring you on board.
Mm-hmm.
We are thrilled to have you. I was like, it's a no-brainer. And I asked them about that. It's like, yeah, the TEDx, the revenue, what you're doing, it's a no-brainer. I was like, oh,
Mm.
thank you.
That's amazing. So talk to me about a little bit about the future, and then I got some quotes that you've said that I want to bring up from different
Okay.
podcasts, which will be fun. All right. So next 3 to 5 years, what is it looking like for Joseph, and what's it looking like for Apex?
Yes, so Apex real estate is what it is, right? It's strictly for real estate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the intent starting off. But what I plan on doing is expanding this here, doing more deals, acquiring more buildings, and getting 1 billion plus in assets under management for apartment buildings, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
the plan. But I also have noticed that a lot of people love the beauty industry,
Hmm.
and it's $1 billion industry.
Mm-hmm.
People like Botox and those things. Women, they love
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. So next is to set up a med spa.
I didn't see that one coming, man. Okay. So
Yep.
this is brick and mortar.
Yeah, yeah. But for women who are there, they have, pretty much went through all these here classes and stuff, and they want to open their own med spa, be the person that funds it, make sure they have the training to run it,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
I get paid equity. So I'm not having
Okay.
to manage it myself ever. But you
You
just
sure
own
you
all these
you sure
different
you don't
med
want to be
spas.
an operator? You don't want to be in there,
Oh
doing the
no, I'm not
injections?
operating. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
Oh man. I
Yeah,
love it. I
it's
love
very.
it.
A lot of people they would not expect that, but I was like, there's a business there.
Bro, it's so funny that you mentioned that because when I was doing corporate sales, I was trying to do all these businesses on the side, right? And one of my businesses I started was a marketing agency. I was a Facebook leads expert. Didn't even know Facebook leads. I basically just outsourced everything and was the sales and operations behind it. And I
Hmm.
was trying to pick a niche and ended up looking around. I'm like, okay, who makes a lot of money, but maybe don't have the marketing background or the business background? I can go in there and help them. And what I ended up landing on was med spas. So for
Yep.
like a full year, I was a Facebook leads expert for med spas. I went to a conference in Vegas right before COVID shut everything down. I was like, yeah, one of like probably four guys in the 1,000 women just learning about Botox and all this other stuff. So it is a very profitable industry. I totally agree. Really cool people
Yep.
too.
Now I'm not gonna put out there how I plan on acquiring these here, but it's
Oh,
I would say this though.
yeah.
I got the idea really from some guys, the guys who got me started in as a fund manager, because they have real estate funds, right?
Hmm.
But they also own a chain of freestanding emergency rooms throughout Texas, the Dallas Fort Worth area.
Wow. Okay.
So you would never guess that, but yeah, like they own medical facilities, including the hospital. So it just makes sense. I was like, well, I don't necessarily want to do that route. I'm not about to be like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, just a carbon copy. So I need to figure out something different that I'll have on the side. And so I said, oh,
Yeah.
med spa.
That's awesome. So I'm just thought of this question right now. If you are actually you have equity, never mind. Because I was going to say, do you ever want to have like real estate yourself? But at the end of the day, you actually
Yeah,
own
I have
a
equity.
percentage of this equity. So you're not
Exactly.
even probably ever going to look at like a single family house, be like, hey, I want to also own some single family houses. You're like, I just want my equity in within the group, and it's probably
Yeah,
way more diversified too.
within apartment buildings, that's great.
Yeah.
If I ever wanted to diversify into single family, I I mean, it would be something like to pass down to kids, I guess.
Hmm.
You
Or
know,
maybe do some
it's
co
easy.
living houses with me. We can talk
Yeah,
about that.
I mean, yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah,
All right,
I
question
just
for you, man. I heard this on the podcast. I was cracking up. If I need to bring my assault rifle to visit the house I own, I'm not buying in that area. Talk to
ex
me about investing in D class neighborhoods.
yes, so that's not something I would do. I feel
Yeah.
like if I have to literally bring like my assault rifle, pack it in the car just to come into the neighborhood, I should not be investing in that area because it's putting me in a bad situation, right? I don't want to feel like
Hmm.
I'm on a military yacht. I gotta kick a door down. Everybody get on the goddamn floor. Hey, pay my rent. Like,
You're like, I
like,
left that life in the past.
yes, it's not pretty, man. It's not pretty. You don't want
Oh
to see that
man.
side of me. It's not
Yeah,
pretty.
right. I love it. Okay, Joseph, give us a learning lesson that you've had in the past, maybe since being, a fund manager. I think that would be something that's really, be beneficial to the audience because, like I told you, I think a lot of people learn from failures even more than people's success.
Yes. So early on as a fund manager, I would say be choose the right kind of fund for you to start.
Mm,
Meaning know your friends and family, right? Now, this could come off a certain way, but a good majority of our people don't come from friends and family that's very,
mm,
very wealthy.
mm,
That being said, don't
mm,
start a fund that's dependent on your friends and family to be successful.
yeah.
Start one where you can market freely to the masses. The problem with that is that sometimes those funds are more expensive, running you about 60 to 70,000 upwards into six figures to even get started. It's all about barriers of entry. It's like it's
Hmm.
designed that way for a reason.
So you would
Um,
somehow figure out how to get through those barriers of entry to start it where you're not dependent on your friends and family, that you're able to publicly market.
exactly. Now
Okay.
there's some where you might need 20,000 to get started.
Hmm.
It all depends on the attorney that you work with. But even
Hmm.
15 to 20,000 is a large sum of money to start a fund. Am I correct? Not
Hmm.
everybody's just walking around with $15,000 to $20,000 to throw for paperwork to get forms so they can start raising money, and they don't even know if they're going to be able to raise the money.
Hmm.
So that is something that I learned. So I would
Love it.
say I know that I'm good at marketing. I
Hmm.
know how to get myself in front of the right people, be in the right places. I know that I'm also willing to do the things that other people are not willing to do. I don't mind cold calling someone saying that I'm the manager of this fund and I want you to invest with me. But sometimes people are more arrogant. They don't want to do those things. So it just depends, right?
Makes perfect sense. That kind of leads into my next question. So let's say there's someone out there, and this maybe someone doesn't want to become a fund manager, but they're just trying to raise capital for the first time. Even me, for example, for my first few deals in real estate, I used all my own capital, like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I was like, all right, it's time to leverage someone else, so I don't have to come up with all my own money. I know how to do this, proven process. What are two action steps you would give for someone like me, or for someone who's like, hey, I want to actually start partnering with people, or even finding the right private money lender, which is not what you do, but I think you would have some insight into how to approach these type of people, investors in general. What are two action steps that you would suggest?
Yes. One, know what you're talking about. You need to know what you're selling like the back of your hand.
Hmm.
That's number one. Number two, know how to deliver it in a way that they understand what you're selling. People don't invest in things they don't understand. That's something I
Hmm.
learned quickly because I was like, okay, I'm speaking to them about 506B, 506C. I'm doing throwing all this different lingo out there. They don't understand that. Even people in real estate don't know the difference between a 506B, 506C fund. Reg A, they don't know that.
Hmm.
So you have to break things down, and it's kind of like you're feeding them pretty much milk, right? Like a baby, milk,
Hmm.
something that's easily digestible, so they understand it and want to invest. If you're giving them all the advanced stuff and technical, and they're not about to invest with you because they're
Hmm.
confused.
What about investor stories? You got any good investor stories? I know that you've been able to, connect with a lot of people. I think maybe someone who was, an owner of a basketball franchise somewhere in Texas. I
Oh,
think you might have ran into. You have
I
any
did.
fun stories you can share?
No, I did run into Mark Cuban.
That's pretty awesome.
Um, yeah, he's pretty cool. We played basketball together a few times at the gym, in Dallas, and even recently saw him late last year. I think October, November. And he was like, "Man, where you been at? We ain't seen you at this gym in a little while." So I was traveling, man, out, and I'm in another part of the country now. I mean, another part of the state now.
Yeah. So you're very intentionality. All comes back to that. You're very intentional about where you are, where you hang out with, what kind of memberships you have, so you can meet these high net worth people. What are some areas? What are some places that you go that you got memberships that basically you invested in yourself, so you can be around proximity to these people?
Yeah, so like I'll go to like a Lifetime Fitness or Equinox
Mm-hmm.
Fitness. One, I work out. That's it pretty much. I like healthy food. I don't like junk. Um, what else? Uh, I say go to like membership clubs where they golf. Uh,
Mm.
what's that new thing? Pickleball. That's
Yeah,
another one.
pickleballs. Yeah.
Yeah, you wanna get around people that play that. I know that I'm 30, but my investors are not my age.
Mm-hmm.
Most people who will invest with me are not 30 because if we're being honest, a lot of people in our age group don't have the money to invest with us.
Correct.
You want to be talking to the people who are 50, 60, and older. They hold all the money. They hold the wealth. They own like
Mm-hmm.
60+% of the wealth.
Mm.
And even if
So
you
true.
come across somebody our age that has some money, what do they normally do with it?
Blow it.
Designer,
Yeah.
designer,
Yeah.
flying people out,
Mm.
luxury cars, all things that waste money, resources. It means absolutely nothing because and my biggest thing, reason why I've never subscribed to that kind of stuff early in my journey is because you never want to be that person that when you're 50, you're telling your kids, you're like, yeah, I used to own a Ferrari, but what you
Mm.
own now? That Toyota out there.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
And a lot of people don't realize is when they spend all their money early like that, when they start making it, you end up being that if you don't get equity in something and start investing sooner, you end up being
Mm-hmm.
that person that has to downgrade their lifestyle later. So
Mm.
you enjoy life now, but you downgrade later.
Right.
It's better to keep it consistent.
Man, just touch on designer stuff too. I think it just attracts the wrong people. At least I think the people that we want to attract are not attracted to designer. That's
Oh
not the
no,
group
they're
of
not.
people. Not at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is. I mean, you're in Dallas, right?
Yeah, well, I'm in Dallas. And
You're in
trust me,
Dallas.
where I
I'm
live
in
at,
Scottsdale. I see it. I see it all the time.
yep, I see it all the time. I see a Bentley, Rolls Royce, a dime a dozen. It's not special
Mm-hmm.
anymore. You see Ferraris, Lamborghinis, like this just my neighborhood. You
Yeah.
see all the Teslas. It's yeah.
Mm-hmm. I literally had one of my best friends on the podcast the other day. He's like, I asked him, like, how old were you when you had your first Bentley? He's like, I think he said 23. And he's like, also had some like fancy SUV Audi at the same time. I'm like, what do you think about the decision looking back now? He goes, stupid. So
That's
like
like I
eventually
heard
you'll
the
learn,
same
like,
thing.
right.
I heard the
So,
same thing. My mentors, they don't own none of those cars. But I kid you not, they will throw $1 million around in an investment left and right. But you ask
mm-hmm.
them to spend half a million on a car, I ain't got no money for that. I'm broke.
Mm. That's funny. So when you network and talk to these people at these, gyms, golf clubs, etc., what I always say and what's kind of helped me with networking is instead of being interesting, be interested.
Yeah, be
Interested instead of
interested, learn
interesting.
about them. Yeah, that's another
Mm-hmm.
thing. Don't go there like a groupie. You know the ones who are groupies. Don't be that
Mm-hmm.
person. Go
Yeah.
there and just be interested in what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. So
And
good.
then they'll naturally ask you what you do.
Yep. And that's when you get a shine. That's when it's the balls in your court. But
Exactly.
until then, I don't even say anything about what I do until they ask, because they'll eventually ask. Or if they don't ask, and you're like, all right, this person might be a little, self-absorbed. Maybe they don't care.
Yeah.
That's cool. Move on to the
You
next
gotta know how to
person.
get attention also. Like me, I go in, like I work out. I throw two 45 plates on both sides of the bar for the bench press. That's my
Mm-hmm.
workout weight.
Mm-hmm.
3 sets, 10 reps. You don't
So
think
you
that gets
just get in the gym
attention?
and start flexing on everybody. Okay, I
Like
see
people,
you.
people, like seriously, guys,
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
who walk up, they're like, man,
100%.
you doing that with the calisthenics also?
Yeah.
Like you doing a different variation of push-ups along with that? That's all one sit. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
bro.
You,
That's
you a
one sit.
different you
They're
a
like,
different breed. If you could do calisthenics and bench heavy, like that's usually not normal. So I'm excited to get
yeah,
a workout with you, man. I'm gonna come to Dallas, man. We're gonna link up. We'll do a podcast in person. It's gonna be fire. So I want to ask you a couple quick questions before we wrap up. Number one, someone's out there early on their investor journey. and they're just taking some L's right now, learning lessons, not
Yep.
losses, learning lessons. What is one piece of advice that you would give to them?
Same thing that I learned in the Marine Corps. And that's just, they always said this here. You might laugh. They said, embrace the suck
Mm.
and just keep pushing forward.
Mm-hmm.
It's all a part of it. It's just another chapter in your story when you make it that you get to tell. Makes your story a lot more interesting. No one reads a book that says, I started this business, I was successful in the business, I never saw failure, and I'm just a success. No one, you
Mm-hmm.
can't learn anything from that person.
So
But you
true. Your
can learn
test.
something from the people who have made mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Dead on. Your tests become your testimony. That's one of my favorite quotes right there.
Yep.
So, Joseph, how do people find you? And then also, first, before you say how people find you and reach out to you, Growth House is a community that we want to serve. We want to give back. We want to help the people who, are supporting us. And today you're here sharing your knowledge, value, and supporting us. We want to support you. What are you looking for right now in your business? I know you're probably looking for accredited investors. Just kind of
Yep.
talk about what you're looking for.
Yep. I'm always raising money. Always raising money from accredited investors. So people with 200, 300,000 liquid cash, that's what I'm always looking for. And we take that active income, turn it into passive income by investing in these apartment buildings with a lot of these here great operators that I was telling you about offline,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure my investors get a great return.
Love it. How do people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Joseph Kimbrough, JosepKimbrough, and also on LinkedIn as the same, Joseph Kimbrough, and you'll know the difference. You'll see the picture.
He'll know which was you.
Yep, you'll know which one is me.
Perfect.
Yeah, you can also check out my website too, which is investinapartmentsnow.com. And
Awesome.
all the
And
social
then
medias are up there.
absolutely. And go check out the TED Talk. It's amazing. Also, I love the podcast that you've been on. So, just Google on Apple Music, not Apple Music, Apple Podcasts. You'll find some of the
Yep.
podcasts that you've been on. I think they're great. Learned so much just from the last couple that I've listened to. Jesse Ray with the Growth House Podcast. Joseph, we appreciate you, man. And until I come out there in Dallas and we do this in person, we're out.